We went through that whole thing of equality, whatever equations there. But some of the highlights were, you always think opposite. And you always remember that whatever operation you do to one side, you do to the other. To one side, do to the other. And I can't remember what the example we had, maybe it was something like this. If you're asked to solve for x, and the equation was x minus 18 equals 35. Okay? Rather than looking at that and going, oh, what number minus 18 is 35, you can simply think about it like this. What type of equation is it? Subtraction. What's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. What are you going to do to both sides? Add. What are you going to add? 18. Because when you have a minus 18 and a plus 18, they go away. And that leaves me with just my x over here. 35 plus 18 is 53. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, your answer. I think we did an example of that. We did a multiplication one. You know, if 6x equals 240, what type of equation is it? It's a multiplication because it says 6 times x is 240. What's the opposite of that? Division. You divide 6 by 6. You're left with 1, but that is just 1x. Divide 240 by 6, you have 40. X equals 40. And then I think we also did a addition problem. What if you have x plus 7,386 equals 9,472? What type of equation is that? Addition. How do you solve it? Subtraction. You're going to subtract whatever this is to get x by itself. Subtract 7,386 from that. What are you left with? 6802, I believe. X equals 2,086. If I did my math right. Now, the division one gets a little snarky. Wait, I like that word, don't you? Snarky. Because of this. Okay? Because of this. If you have x divided by 8 equals 24, and 8 divided by x is 24. Those are not the same thing. And they don't give you the same answers. As a matter of fact, this is not sure solvable. I should have done it the other way around, but I probably should, either still. Okay. This one is the one that is solved the way we would know, the way you would think about it. This is x divided by 8. How do you get rid of a divided by 8? You multiply by 8. Because 8 over 1 would make this cross cancel and you're left with just an 8. So you multiply by 8 over here and you get, I don't know, 32, 2, 3, 16, 192. 192 divided by 8 is 24. This one's a little goofy in the sense that this really isn't x divided by a number, it's some number divided by x. Thoughts on this one? How would you go about solving this one? You could go old school back to 5th grade. What did I say in old school? 5th grade, when we said you saw an equation that had a letter in it, what were you supposed to do? Wade Davis? Think of an easier problem, which could be, I don't know, 6 divided by 2 is 3. If you're missing the top, what do you do with these two? Wait, if you're missing the bottom, I'm sorry, what do you do with those two? You divide this into this, right? This is 6 divided by 3. So you'd have to do the same thing. It would be 8 divided by 24, which gives you some kind of a goofy number. That's why I said I put the wrong number there. It'd be 8 over 24. Actually, the answer is 1/3 to that problem, if that's what we're going. Okay, so you have to be careful with division. If the x is on top, you can solve it by multiplication. If the x is on the bottom, it's a little more complicated. You might want to think of an easier problem there. And then the last one is this. Since we've got time, I will explain it more to you than I usually do. What happens when you have a fraction in front of the letter? 3/5 x equals 30. 3/5, fractions seem to throw people off. You can think about this just like we did. What type of equation is it? It's a multiplication. So to solve it, I would. Okay, and here's what you could do. believe it or not, 3/5 divided by 3/5 is 1. So you still cross off and get the x, and then you'd have to divide this by 3/5. Well, when you divide by 3/5, it's the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal, right? So this actually changes into times 5/3. And how many times you get 150 over 3, and your answer ends up being 50. Now, what I will tell you is you don't have to go through all of that rigmarole. You can do the same thing in an incredibly short fashion. I will write it out here. 3/5 x equals 30. And write down this, please, for me in big letters, so you'll always remember this because I still have 8th graders ask it, and we still repeat it here. All right? If there is a fraction in front of the variable or the letter, comma, just flip and multiply. And the reason that works is because, yes, we divided, but dividing is flipping and multiplying. Okay, so rather than going through this whole long process here, you can just do this. Whatever this fraction is, flip it and multiply both sides by it. It will shorten your word process a lot. What happens when I multiply these, they all cross off, you're left with x. And this one you can just take 3 into 30, get 10, 5 times 10 is 50. If there is a fraction in front of the letter, you simply just need to flip and multiply. You don't have to go through all of this work to get all the way there, because that's what this really is. Dividing by 3/5 is flipping and multiplying. Yeah, Mr. Hahn, that's great advice. So here's another one. 2/3 x equals 24. Fraction in front of the letter, I am just going to flip it and multiply it. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/2. If I multiply 3/2 times 2/3, that's that whole 2 reciprocals give you 1. And then this one here, 2 goes into 2 once. 24 12 times, you get 36. Does that not seem to be a much easier way to do things? Sure, why not? Oh, or even this one. Here's one right out of the book. 3/4 x equals 1/2. 3/4 times what number is 1/2? Carter Westfall, how do you solve that? What's the phrase that pays? You wrote in big letters.
If there is a fraction in front of, is that it?
Yeah.
If there is a fraction in front of the variable, flip and
So
flip and multiply.
what I'm looking for is just the words flip and multiply. 4/3 times 4/3. So this crosses off, you're left with just the x. This gives you, we end up with 4/6, which actually is 4/6 reduces down to 2/3. How many of you knew that 3/4 times 2/3 is 1/2? Not something you come across every day, is it? Maybe every other day. Every other day, you face that song? Anybody know the Beatles? Ever heard of one? Group of 1960s? John, Paul, Ringo, George Harrelson. Alright. Well, we shall stop there, give you some chance to do some stuff.